We begin this Monday with a warning for Europe from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. He says that European countries should be bracing for potentially hostile activity coming from Russia. Zelenskyy says that Ukraine is facing a historic week as it awaits a landmark decision from the European Union on its bid for candidate status. But he says that decision could prompt Russia to intensify its aggression against Ukraine and Ukraine's Western supporters.
A Russian missile plunged into Ukrainian soil. In the city of Lysychansk, no one is safe. Across the river, the city of Severodonetsk has been reduced to rubble by fierce fighting. As Russia's offensive in the Donbas region grinds on, the fear is that Lysychansk is next. Most residents have fled, but some are stuck.
We have nothing left. Everything was burnt down. The most important thing is to get my sick father out. That's all that matters to me. I don't know how long he can survive. I don't think this war is going to end soon.
They live in cellars to increase their chances of survival, bracing for a predicted escalation in Russia's campaign of destruction. This week, we should expect greater hostile activity from Russia, and not only against Ukraine, but also against other European countries. We are preparing. We are ready. Zelenskyy believes that Russia will react to the European Union's decision this week on whether Ukraine will become a candidate for membership. Even considering Ukrainian membership is a dramatic shift in the EU's position and runs counter to the Kremlin's efforts to pull Ukraine into its orbit by force. German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock on Monday voiced her support ahead of a meeting of EU foreign ministers.
Today is a special meeting, as we are gathered ahead of a historic moment. We all have to realize that the membership countries have a special responsibility. None of us want to look back at this moment in a few years and think, how could we not make use of this opportunity?
The promise of Europe, hope for Ukraine in its fight for survival.
DW's Emmanuel Shahs is in Kyiv, and I asked her how significant this moment is for Ukraine.
It's very significant for Ukraine, and especially for Ukrainians. It has been years, in fact, way before this war, that the country had been gearing towards the EU candidacy. You can see a lot of people who are pro-European here, not least in this new government where, they are trying to make the necessary reforms because they know the process to be even considered a candidate, and then the process of becoming a member of the European Union will be a long one, and they really do try to abide by European rule of law and European values. So very significant week indeed for Ukraine.
And President Zelenskyy, he is also warning of greater hostile activity from Russia, not just against Ukraine, but across all of Europe. But do we have any indication of what that backlash is going to look like or could look like?
Well, the worst backlash, of course, is the price being paid by Ukrainians themselves, especially in the eastern part of the country where, well, the Ukrainian population is paying with its blood. This war started on February 24th, but in Western Europe, this could take the form of cyber attacks, for example. It could also take the form in Russia blackmailing Europe in terms of energy deliveries, even if Western Europe has taken steps to become independent from that energy from which it depended for years, for decades. And of course, we're seeing unfolding a food crisis that will affect Europe as Russia continues to block the circulation of grain in Ukrainian ports.
And Emmanuel, let's talk about what's going on the front lines. Fighting is raging in eastern Ukraine. Do we know what is the situation like for the residents who are still living there?
Well, we're getting reports from a very dire situation, especially in Luhansk, in the cities of Severodonetsk and Lysychansk. In Severodonetsk, the handful of civilians which are still remaining out of the 100,000 that used to live there before the war, well, they don't have access to electricity, no access to running water anymore, and there's over 300 people, civilians, still stuck in a chemical plant, the Azot chemical plant, and this is the only place still held by Ukrainian forces. This is unfortunately reminding us of the standoff between the Russian forces and the Ukrainian forces in the Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol. So a very dire situation there, a very dire situation in Lysychansk as well, the sister city of Severodonetsk, where people are also likewise continuously shelled by the Russian army, and this Russian army which has thrown all its reserves in what will be the next decisive days. We will see more battles in Donbas, in Luhansk and Donetsk over the next few days.
Emmanuel Shahs reporting tonight from Kyiv. Thank you. Well, I'm joined now by Ihor Zhovkva. He's the Ukrainian President Zelenskyy's foreign policy advisor. He's also the deputy head of the president's office. Mr. Zhovkva, it's good to have you on the program. I want to talk about the situation on the front lines in just a moment, but I'd like to start with this historic week. How confident are you that Ukraine will get the green light from the European Union this week to begin these fast-track accession talks?
Well, the first positive news we've got the previous week was the opinion of the European Commission, and many would not believe this opinion would be positive. Now we have this positive opinion recommending the European Union member states to support this opinion. Plus, also we have the vocal support of several leaders of the European countries, Chancellor Scholz, President Macron, Prime Minister Draghi, Prime Minister Rutte, who reiterated his support in his phone conversation with President Zelenskyy. So definitely, this is a consensus decision. You cannot be 100% sure. You can be sure only after the decision is made. But here we have more positive than even several days before expectations on the final decision of the European Council.
You know that joining the European Union is a process that takes years. It can sometimes take decades. Ukraine is expecting this to be fast-tracked. Do you have confidence that your country can pull this off, though, at the same time trying to fight off the Russian military?
Well, that's the fast track that we were shown in throughout the last 4 months. I mean, just to remind you, we summoned an application for membership on the 5th day of war, and less than for 4 months, we are about to receive the candidate status. I think the record high speed for any country who before of us became candidate or even member. We filled in the questionnaire within just 1 month, the process, which would usually take more than a year for the country. So, which gives me all the reasons to say that Ukraine will be moving with the same direction. But definitely not everything will depend on Ukraine. We would like the European Union and its member states to have at least half a speed Ukraine is moving towards the path of the reforms. We are ready to make further reforms despite the war, and especially after we will win the war.
Well, let's assume then the European Union says yes to this fast speed, the fast lane for accession talks. What is Ukraine going to give the EU in return? Are you under pressure from the European Union to possibly take actions to bring this war to an end sooner rather than later? And I'm also talking about perhaps giving up territory to Russia in the name of peace.
That's not true. Neither leader which spoke to my president during his visits in Kyiv or during the phone conversations, which my president have numerous per day. So me personally, I haven't heard any indications of this or that leader inclining Ukraine to make any secessions or to move with sooner speed to end the war. We just do not need just to end the war. We need to win. we need to have all the Ukrainian territories back. So no one is able, to make my president to any inclination or any sensations of any territories. We will find to the last inch of Ukrainian territory. We do not want any other territory, but for Ukrainian territory, we will fight all the time.
You say you want to win the war. You can only win this war if you have enough weapons. Are you getting the heavy weapons, the artillery that you need right now to push the Russians back?
Well, right, much, if not everything, depends on whether we will attain a weapon of heavy weapon. In fact, that's about artillery systems, but not only. That's about MLRS, that's about armored vehicles, that's about tanks. If you ask me whether the progress is going on, yes, it's much more progressive, and the speed is much more higher than it used to be in the beginning of war. Then many of the states would not even believe Ukraine would be able to sustain a Russian aggression. Remember, some military experts would not give Ukraine more than 3 or 5 days, which coincided somehow with a plan which Russia had. So now everyone saw that Ukraine is capable. Ukraine knows how to fight. Ukraine knows not only how to defend, but how to counterattack and to win. And this Ramstein meeting, the third already throughout the last months, showed that the world believes in Ukraine. Now it's high time to act with a high speed in delivering weapons to the territory of Ukraine. That's what near us to the victory.
Yeah, we will see definitely this week how fast things progress. Mr. Ihor Zhovkva, the foreign policy advisor to Ukrainian President Zelenskyy, we appreciate your time and your insights tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.